Hey, what's up guys, it's Marv and welcome back to another Asphalt 9 video, and today we are talking about overclock. Now this is a new feature that was finally introduced by Gameloft, and essentially if you don't know what it is, you can now obtain something called overclock chips and apply them to a pre-selected number of cars that will change each season to get an overclock boost to the stats of that car. So each class has a different cost for the overclock chips, and it will last a certain amount of time, and each car has a specific amount that the stats change by. So for example, all cars are going to have different effects, and the stat boost ranges from around 120 to 225 in terms of the rank. So I've seen on the low end some D class cars and even S class cars go to around 120 or 150, whereas some A class cars like the McLaren 570S gets a boost of around 225. So it isn't the same stat boost for every single car. So because this feature is really new, I'm really trying to just start the conversation around it rather than giving a be all end all review of this feature, because this is a very controversial feature and I want to see how it plays out before I get either really angry or really excited about overclock. And this is mainly because anything in a game that can give you a stat boost where you can just pay to get it is a very tricky subject, especially for a free-to-play game, and something that you can just buy with real money, because that will obviously give someone a huge advantage over someone who can't either afford to pay for it or doesn't want to. So on one hand of this issue, we have the fact that if you look at the actual numbers by which the stats change by when you overclock a car, it really doesn't seem to make that big of a difference. Now that's going to change because the increase to D class cars is going to be proportionally greater compared to the increase in stats of an S class. Obviously, if you, let's say, go up by 100 just by default, 100 out of a car rank that might be 2000 is a huge percentage compared to an increase of 100 if your car rank is 5000. So I wrote down a couple of points that I want to talk about because I believe this is where the conversation needs to be, and this is going to decide whether or not overclock is a welcomed feature or something that could ruin the game for a very long time. So the first thing that is very obvious is just the cost. Does this make Asphalt 9 pay to win? Well, definitely if they are only planning to offer overclock chips for real purchases, but we know, at least from the patch notes, that they want to give these out through events, special events, and other ways in rewards throughout the game. And they've already done that through one of the daily events introducing the feature. And when this feature was unveiled, the fact that the inventory could hold 1,000 chips led me to believe that they would be easy to obtain. So that is the critical point here in terms of cost, because obviously if you're going to be able to purchase these with real money willy-nilly, then that's one thing. However, if free players can get these very, very easily, just like if Gameloft gave out overclock chips to free players like kids get Halloween candy, then that won't be an issue because everyone will have overclock chips, kind of like the situation in Asphalt 8 where everyone and their dog has all 3 boosts equipped all the time. So if overclocking chips are really easy to come by, then I don't think this is going to be that big of an issue. Obviously, there's still going to be the point that, well, if you can just pay for overclock chips, then you may have unlimited chips theoretically, and whereas a free player can only get a certain amount per day, if they give you a very generous amount, then I don't think it's going to be a big deal that much. As of now, we only had that one daily event that introduced the chips and gave them out for free. We haven't seen overclock chips, as far as my knowledge is, anywhere else throughout the game. So at the moment, you can't really get them without paying or by spending all yours that you just got in that free event. And especially because the S-Class cars cost 15 overclock chips to get, that's going to be very expensive very quickly. The other problem that I want to bring up is something that I feel Gameloft could pretty easily fix and isn't really a controversial issue. I think this is just a bug or something that needed to be double checked, but that is the time issue. Now, Asphalt 9 works on server-based timing, which means the events will end for everyone at the same time. Now, that's a good or bad thing. Let's say you wake up in the morning and the event is about to end. You're out of luck. But if you wake up and you have all day to play the event and practice it, well, then you just got lucky with your time zone. Now, unfortunately for me, sometimes when I get home from a very long day and I'm about to play some multiplayer or an event, I may only have a couple of hours left to do it. And through these couple of screenshots here, you can see that the duration for the overclock for this Koenigsegg Jesko actually changes. And what this tells me is that the overclock depletes itself based on the server time. And again, this means if you just got home from a long day and you want to sit down, you've saved up some overclock chips, and you go to find out that overclocking your top end S-Class car is going to get you 15 minutes, that's going to make people very angry. So in my opinion, they need to change this feature right now. The overclock duration needs to be client side, not server side. I don't want the game to determine the fact that maybe I'm just unlucky and I live in a crappy time zone, so my overclock is going to get me 30 minutes of time versus someone else on the other side of the planet who overclocks and gets 23 hours of overclock time. So that's something that needs to be changed ASAP. Now again, I talked about the stats boost, and I think it's going to be a difficult thing to tell because at the moment I was just playing multiplayer. I will show you guys gameplay of an overclocked Max Aranera Hasaria, 2 races with it, and then the other races are going to be with overclock. And the most noticeable stat you can see increase is a top speed increase from 218 to 219 miles per hour. Wow, big deal, yeah right. But once you start talking about Legend League and those top 1% of players, maybe that could be the difference. Now again, that's going to be in the S-Class figures where maybe these numbers, these stat boosts, might not have a noticeable effect at all, and unfortunately that's just not something that I can test right this very second. So obviously the actual stats boost that the overclock comes with is going to be a major factor. So I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys right now. At the moment, I'm not really sure what to think about overclocking in Asphalt 9. Obviously, I'm not very fond of a stat changing boost that you can pay for, and I think this is really going to depend on how easy it is to obtain for free players. Like if I can just grab them willy-nilly on daily events, maybe every single day I get some overclocking chips along with some credits during that credits heist event. That would be pretty neat, and I think that would stop players from feeling left out if they can't afford to buy overclock chips with real money. But then on the other hand, based on my very limited experience, does the overclock boost even do much besides raise your top speed by 1 mile per hour, give you that very slight edge of acceleration? Now, in classic multiplayer, just in general, I don't think this is going to make a difference. If you're slogging through Gold League in your Huracan, you're going to get knocked down regardless of you have overclock or not. Now, if they allow this in time-limited events, well, maybe those couple of milliseconds could make a difference, and I could definitely see at the very top with those 1% of players playing with the maxed out Bolide, the maxed out Venom F5, maybe this could make the slightest difference, but I really want to wait for more testing, and I want to get my hands on the ability to test very high-end cars with and without overclock to be able to make that determination. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really am curious to hear your thoughts about overclocking in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys later.